Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, seeking the blessings of the Almighty and bowing at the lotus feet of Sutturu Guru Parampara, offering sincere pranams to His Holiness Lingaikya Jagat Guru Shri Shri Dr. Shivaratri Rajendra Mahaswamiji Galavaru, and seeking the blessings of His Holiness Jagat Guru Shri Shivaratri Deshikendra Mahaswamiji Galavaru, on behalf of JSS Mahavidyapita, JSS Science and Technology University, and Department of Mechanical Engineering SJCE, I, Bhavana U, Assistant Professor from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Mr. Sharath BS, participants from various colleges, invitees, our esteemed faculty members, and dear students for the third and final day of the 3-day webinar on Engineering Management and Entrepreneurship Series 2. I now request Mr. Abhinandan MS, Assistant Professor from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, to introduce today's guest speaker, Mr. Sharath BS.
Morning, everyone. My great pleasure to introduce Mr. Sharath BS, founder and CEO, Triumph Investments, Mysore, Karnataka. Mr. Sharath is a dynamic professional and an entrepreneur with more than 10 years of teaching experience at JSS Center of Management Studies, JSS Science and Technology University, Mysuru, and has nearly 20 years of cross-functional experience in investment advisory. He is the founder and CEO of Triumph Investments, business associate of Kotak Securities, Mysuru. He has more than 2 decades of hands-on experience in rendering advice and aiding the process of investment and asset management. He has demonstrated abilities in cementing healthy relationship with HNI clients for generating business and leading workforce towards accomplishing business and corporate goals. He has significant knowledge about stock markets, commodity markets, mutual funds, derivatives, depository participants, mutual funds, financial planning, etc. Mr. Sharath is a proactive leader and planner, having expertise in identifying key accounts, managing portfolio, expanding client base for augmenting turnovers and achieving desired target or goals. We are fortunate to have a person with such vast knowledge and experience. I once again welcome Mr. Sharath and request him to share his knowledge. Mr. Sharath will be presenting on the topic financial management, source, risk and uncertainties during pandemic COVID-19. I request Mr. Sharath to take over. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Abhinandan. So at the foremost, I would like to thank the entire department for giving me the opportunity. So good morning to all of you. So let's start with the presentation. So the topic is all about the sources of finance, risk and uncertainties during pandemic COVID-19. This is the brief contents what we would be discussing today. So capital and capital formation, finance and financial management, introduction to personal finance, need for investing, attributes of investment, what basically an investor should look out for, various investment avenues, that is the most important part. So where can one invest at this point of time? So, and setting smart financial goals. So anybody can set any kind of a goals, but when we say goals, it needs to be smart enough. Okay, so let's understand when we talk about a financial goal, what a smart financial goal would mean. Then how to achieve financial independence, financial planning process, what care should one take while investing, and the most important part, lessons learned in the recent pandemic. So then we will be open for the Q&A. Okay, so there are a few slides, initial slides, where I just try to touch upon a few things so that since I understand most of them are UG students who are participants over here. So let's understand the very first thing, capital and capital formation. So basically, if you talk about anything, any event, any business, any project, or anything as such, the most important thing required is the capital. So we will understand what basically capital and capital formation would mean. Okay, so capital basically consists of assets that can enhance one's capacity to perform. It could be anything like your land, building, plant, machinery, patents, technology, or anything as such. Okay, so businesses use capital to generate incremental revenues. So the whole idea of a business or an entrepreneur is to augment all these scarcely available resources and generate incremental revenues by way of profits. Then comes how do we form capital or how do we generate capital? So basically, when we talk about capital formation, it is defined as the part of countries or business current output or revenues which is not consumed during the accounting period. That means to say you are not using or spending the same amount today itself. The moment you spend it or utilize it today, it cannot form a part of the capital, but it is set aside as an addition to its stock of capital goods. The steps in capital formation is basically creation of savings. The very first thing is your income minus expenditure. That is what we call it as savings in simple terms. Then comes mobilization of savings and investment of savings. We will understand these 3 points in the further slides. Okay, so then let's touch upon what do you mean by finance and financial management. Finance is the management of money and includes activities such as investing, borrowing, lending, budgeting, saving, and forecasting. Okay, so financial management means planning, organizing, directing. These are the basic principles of any management. So same principles have been adopted in finance as well. So financial management means planning, organizing, directing, and controlling the financial activities such as procurement and utilization of funds of the business or the enterprise. So the basic objective of financial management is to ensure that adequate amount of financial resources are made available at the right time and place for ensuring the smooth functioning of an organization. So you will have various departments in business. Okay, it could be marketing department, research department, or production department. So what the main objective of a finance manager over there is to ensure that sufficient funds are made available for the smooth performance or running of the organization. So when we talk about finance or when we talk about capital, so how can a business or an enterprise or a industry mobilize this capital? So basically, anybody could mobilize capital in two forms, that is in two ways. Very first thing is equity or the other one is debt. Equity in simple terms, what happens is the owner's contribution, okay, who's initially making that investment and taking up the entire risk on himself. So that amount is called as equity. Debt is a borrowing. Any kind of a borrowing you do is called to be debt. So basically, if you talk about debt, it could be in the form of a long-term loans that you are borrowing from a financial institution or a bank or anything as such. Or it could be issuance of debentures or bonds, etc. So these are the two ways through which you can raise or mobilize capital. So equity, we defined it as the owner's mobilization or owner's contribution initially. But when the company grows big, they might want to add more people or more owners into the company. That is when a company decides to go public and issues shares to the general public. That is, it becomes a listed company from a private limited company. Okay, so that was just a simple introduction. So now let us get into the topic that is basically personal finance and how do you manage your own personal finances. So to understand that, first thing we need to understand is there a difference between a saving and investment or investing? So basically, whenever I discuss with any of them, they say that savings and investments go hand in hand or it's one and the same. But trust me, it's not the same. Savings is simple. So your income minus expenditure, your pocket money minus your expenditure, or your salary minus your expenditure. So whatever is left out is considered to be savings. And that savings, how will it be? Either if you have withdrawn all your salary initially itself, you might be having cash on hand. Or since the salary gets credited into your SB account, some balance might be left out in your SB account. That is called as savings. So what is investment? So investment is a process of converting this savings or deploying this savings so that it generates additional funds to you. Okay. Investing is the act of deploying one's savings into financial and non-financial products with the expectation of earning higher returns over a period of time. It could be a fixed deposit, it could be investment into bonds, shares, mutual funds, gold, silver, real estate, etc. So anything, so you are making or you're parting with your savings now with an idea to earn or generate higher returns at a future point of time. That process is called as investing. So the other primary difference is that savings might not earn anything to you. Whereas investing, the idea of investing is to generate higher returns. Those returns could be in the form of interest, it could be in the form of capital appreciation, it could be in the form of dividends or anything as such. The other disadvantage is that if you keep it as savings, there is something called as inflation, which we will be discussing about it, which is also called as a silent killer. So the purchasing power of your rupee keeps on coming down. So let's understand that. Okay, so differences. One is the meaning. Saving is the portion of a person's income which is not used for expenses. Whereas investment involves deploying your money or deploying your savings in various investments to make the money grow. Purpose of saving made to typically fulfill short-term or urgent or emergency requirements. Whereas investments are made to make the money grow by creating assets that can generate additional income to you. Savings, when you talk about it, is the risk associated with that is low or negligible. Whereas when you talk about investments into various financial asset classes, it could be low to high. It depends on what kind of a investment you decide to make. When we talk about liquidity, liquidity is the ease of converting it back to cash. So if you have your funds cash on hand, it is very much liquid because it is cash with you. Let's say you have it in your SB account, so you can always go and withdraw your money. So it's highly liquid. But when we talk about your investments, it depends, again, on what kind of an asset you have made an investment. It can be highly liquid or low liquidity. Like, for example, you might have decided to make an investment into real estate. You might have bought a site or a building or an apartment or something as such. It is not very easy for you to convert it back to cash. Okay. So with this understanding on savings and investment, let's continue. So why should one invest? Why not? Okay, I'm happy. So I'm receiving my salary. I'm spending some money, I'm saving some money, I'm happy with that. Why should I make an investment? So let's understand the need and importance for investing. An individual struggles to earn and save throughout his life, whereas investments work for generating returns throughout the invested period. So what happens is that you as an individual are working day in and day out to earn your salaries. When you make an investment, your investments work for you. In return, they work for you to generate higher returns for you. So it is the great Warren Buffett suggests that you should always have multiple sources of income. So he says investment should be your second source of income. Okay. Investing makes money grow for you. Investment should form one's secondary source of income. Interest or enhancement of value of the investment over time gets you closer to your financial goal. So now what could these financial goals be? So your financial goal could be to purchase a super bike, to purchase an imported car, to get married, to buy a house, an apartment, anything, or a world tour, anything. Most important, retirement planning. I know you might think that I'm too early to talk about retirement for you, but it is sooner the better. However, sooner you start planning for your retirement, so good for you. Okay, so these could be your financial goals. Okay, so most common financial goals are purchase of car, a house, marriage expenses, children education, retirement planning, etc. So the earlier you start, the better you will be placed in meeting your financial goals. So more time you have for saving and more time you leave it invested, the better will be the corpus that you will be generating at the end. And sooner will you reach the financial goals. So whenever you have to make an investment, what are the factors or what are the characteristics or attributes that one has to look out for before deciding on investing? The first and foremost is returns. Return is what is it that you are going to get back. It could be in the form of interest or it could be in the form of capital appreciation. Okay, so what extra thing or extra benefit you are going to get back by making this investment? Next is risk associated. Risk is uncertainty. So there are various types of risk. Let's not get into that. But for a simple understanding, risk is uncertainty. And trust me, risk is everywhere. Okay, so how well you manage the risk. Now, there is a strong relationship between risk and return. That is, they're positively correlated. It states that higher the risk you are ready to take, higher is the potential of returns that you can make. Like for example, if you say that I want to play very safe, I want very low risk products. So the best product is your savings bank account. But what is the kind of returns you generate? 3.5% per annum. So contrary, you make an investment into a fixed deposit. So next level, okay. So your per annum interest might be 5% or 5.5%. So like this, higher the risk you are ready to take, higher is the potential return. Then comes the liquidity of the product. When can you convert it back to cash? Or when is it maturing? When is it paid back to you? That is called liquidity. Is there a provision for you to convert it into cash in between? That talks about liquidity. Maturity is the time when it becomes repayable to you. Okay. So when is it maturing? Is it maturing after 10 years, 15 years? Why these factors are important is that I need to match the attributes of these investment products with my financial goal. Now, let's say in next 5 years, I want to buy a car. So obviously I have to look out for making investment into products which matches my maturity of 5 years. I should not go and make an investment which is maturing in next 10 years or 15 years. Then comes your taxation. So taxation part talks about three things basically. One is at the time of investment, is there a tax benefit for you? Next part is during the time you have stayed invested, is there a tax benefit for you? That is the interest you receive or dividends you receive, is it taxable or tax free to you? Then comes on maturity. On maturity, does the capital gains or anything becomes taxable to you or is it tax free to you? So these are some of the most important attributes each individual will have to evaluate before deciding on making an investment. So we were talking about the relationship of risk and return. First thing we need to understand is that there is no such thing as risk-free investment. You talk about anything, there is a risk associated. Most of us, we presume that bank fixed deposits are more safe or is a thing, but trust me, there is also an element of risk. Okay, risk and return relationship is a trade-off. So if you say that I want to take low risk, you have to agree or compromise for a lower return. Next thing is that risk cannot be eliminated. That means to say you cannot come back and say that, or you cannot achieve a plan and say that you have completely eliminated risk. You can only manage risk. Manage risk is try to reduce your risk. But there is no such investment where you can say that this is a risk-free asset. Then comes manage your risk through diversification. Diversification is a process of distributing your savings, not putting all your eggs into a single basket. We'll discuss about this in the next slide. Okay. As I mentioned, risk and investing go hand in hand. The good news is that risk comes with the potential for a reward. I'm sure nobody would want to invest into a high risky product with a low return. Okay. So that being the reason, you cannot have that kind of a product. And trust me, if somebody is assuring you on that, never believe that product. Okay. So rewards from investing, which is what makes the whole process of evaluating worthwhile. Okay. So low risk, low return. High risk, higher potential returns. Then comes your power of compounding. So if you remember, initially we were saying that start early. Start saving it as soon as possible. That's where I said that if you want to, if you're just starting your career, right from your first salary, plan for your retirement. The objective of achieving financial independence in your golden period, okay, is most important. Okay, so start. So this is one example what you see on the top corner where you say 1 to the power of 365 remains 1. That means to say you are saving and not making any investment. Contrary, 1 to the power 1.01 to the power of 365 would mean 37.783. That is the power of compounding. Okay, so in financial markets and investment scenarios, we term the power of compounding as the 8th wonder of the world. Okay, so basically when we talk about your returns or interest or anything, it could be simple interest or compound interest. So in simple terms, the difference is simple interest earns returns only on the principal amount, whereas compounding interest earns interest on interest. So when we talk about two parts over here, okay, so one is your investment, the other one is a loan. Okay, so if at all I want to make an investment, I would always prefer to have a compound interest. Contrary, if at all I want to borrow something, I would always want it as a simple interest. Okay, so a small example over here to talk about the power of compounding. So we have 5 columns over here: your year, principal, return, rate of return, and return earned. So if you talk about a simple interest for the first year, simple interest as well as compound interest would mean one and the same. So first year you have invested 1,000 rupees, rate of return is 9%. So the interest what you have earned is 90 rupees. So the total value at the end of 1 year will be 1,090, irrespective whether it is simple interest or compound interest. In the process of say compound interest, this amount 1,090 becomes the principal for the second year, and it would earn 98 rupees. So that 8 rupees is the interest what you are earning on interest. So if you look out at the end of 40 years, your 1,000 rupees would have grown up to 31,409. Okay, so these are some numbers what we have presumed only for explaining and making you understand the power of compounding. Okay, so this is where we were talking about time value of money, or where we talk about depreciation or loss of purchasing power of your rupee. Okay, time value of money states that the cost of a product or service would cost more in the future years than what it costs today, or the cost of the goods and services today was costing much lesser a few years back. You can talk about anything. It could be a simple idli, dosa, or your college fees or anything as such. If you would see, your idli, what we were having 10 years ago was the same, and what we are having now is the same. But the cost, which was costing you around 1 rupee, today costs you 10 rupees or 20 rupees. Has the product changed? No, the product still remains the same. But the cost of purchasing, cost of manufacturing has increased. Or contrary, the purchasing power of that 1 rupee, what it could purchase an idli then, cannot purchase it today. Okay, so that is why we term inflation as the silent killer. So there is a simple chart over there which talks about what 100 rupees could have bought in 1958. Today, it can buy only 1 rupee to 1.2 rupees worth of goods and services. And also it was 100 rupees, now also it's 100 rupees. But the purchasing power of this amount has depreciated due to inflation. Okay. So the next thing is delay in investing can cost heavily. So that is where I have been stressing on the time duration. Start as early as possible. Okay, so amount required 15 lakhs, expected return 8% per annum, and let's presume the duration is 20 years. So this we are talking about, you require 15 lakhs after 20 years. Might be for your children, higher education, or any specific objective what you might be interested in. So for 20 years investment, so to achieve that 15 lakhs, if an investment asset is giving me 8% return, I would have to make an investment of 2,546 rupees per month, continuously for a period of 20 years, which is generating 8% per annum. So at the end of 20 years, I would have achieved the objective of 15 lakhs. So the next thing is I delay this. Let's say I just started my job. No, I don't want to start it right off. Let me postpone it by 3 years. So after 3 years, that means to say you have to achieve this objective in next 17 years. The investment required per month will be 3,747. That would mean 928 rupees increased investment every month for a period of next 17 years. Okay, so similarly, you can look out if you delay it for 5 years, you might have to pay 1,789 more every month for the next 15 years. Similarly, if you postpone it by 15 years, you will have to increase payment per month by around 18,000 rupees. Okay, so I was mentioning about diversification, where I said that never put all your eggs in a single basket. If that basket falls, all your eggs are shattered. So similarly, do not make all your investments into one specific asset class or one specific equity or anything as such. Okay, so it's always better you diversify it. You can put some part into equities, shares, properties, okay, some mutual funds, hold some cash. Okay, so there are certain retirement-based schemes like your pension plans, like your NPS or anything else. So have a diversified thing. So the advantage of this diversification is that it's a part of your risk management, where I said that you cannot eliminate risk, you can only manage risk. So this process of diversification is a part of risk management. Most of the times what happens is that one of this might not be doing good. Let's say equity markets might be bad. At that point of time, some other thing might be doing good. Mutual funds might be doing good, or your debts, bonds might be doing good, or anything as such. So they try to offset, okay, at times. So talking about the various investment avenues that are available, so it could be financial investments or physical investments. So the basic difference between financial investment and physical investment is that financial investments are all in paper form. So I hold one share of Infosys, I hold 1 lakh shares of Infosys. Both are papers. Okay, only the numbers change. Okay, whereas physical form is something what you can touch, see, and feel. So the most common financial assets are fixed deposits in your banks or corporates. Then you have your bonds and debentures, equity shares. Okay, you can invest into equity shares in primary market or in secondary market. Then you have various mutual fund schemes. Okay, if you say that you would not be in a position to manage your investments, you might want to outsource the job of managing, you can always make an investment into mutual funds. Then you have commodity funds or ETFs, like, for example, you want to invest into gold. So you have gold funds. Okay. Then you have RBI floating rate bonds. Earlier, RBI had 2 types of bonds. One was RBI tax-free bonds and RBI taxable bonds. Now they have scrapped both and they have come out with RBI floating rate bonds. Okay. Then you have SGBs, that is the sovereign gold bond. If at all you purchase gold, okay, so you the question is safety of that. Keeping it safe is a big challenge. And the other part is it might not earn anything back to you. Whereas this product, that is SGB, sovereign gold bonds, gives you a provision to make an investment into gold, but in paper form. So these SGBs are issued by central government. Okay, RBI on behalf of the central government issues these bonds. So what are the characteristics of these bonds? These bonds earn 2.5% interest per annum. Okay. The other thing is that when you make an investment, you will be making an investment as number of grams. Okay. So the recent one, the current one which is open is, if I'm not wrong, it's at around 5,111 rupees per gram. So if you make investment into 10 grams, so you'll have to invest 51,111 rupees. You will be allotted 10 bonds. So on this 51,111 rupees, you will be paid 2.5% interest per annum, and 8 years is the maturity period. So at the end of 8 years, basically it would mean that you are holding 10 grams of gold. So at the end of 8 years, if gold, let's presume it's trading at 6,000 or 8,000 or 10,000 rupees. So 10,000 into 10, you will be paid 1 lakh rupees. So the advantage is you have got that part of appreciation in the gold plus some returns. And you need not worry about it because you're not holding it in physical form. So there is no much worries about the safekeeping of this or anything as such. Excuse me. So the other part is physical investments. Physical investments is something what you can touch, see, and feel. So basically, the most well-known is gold and silver. Okay. Then you have real estate, that is land, building, okay, an apartment, an agricultural land, or anything as such. So there is a niche market for antiques. So you can always invest into antiques. Then you have a broader market for art and painting. Then you have a market for precious stones. So these are the various investment avenues which are available, commonly available. Any of these avenue you decide upon, you will have to evaluate the factors of investment. That is your risk, return, liquidity, maturity, taxation, all those parts, and then decide which suits well to you. So summary of some of the options available. We spoke about company debentures. We spoke about public sector bonds. So the basic difference between a debenture and bond is if a private company is issuing, it's usually issuing a debenture. If government or semi-government or quasi-government entity is issuing it, it will be issuing a bond to you. Then we spoke about RBI tax-free bonds. It is the current bond which is available is RBI floating rate bonds, debt-oriented mutual funds and equity-oriented mutual funds. Okay, so let's understand the liquidity. So company debentures, the liquidity is low. And when we talk about bonds, again, it's moderate. RBI tax-free bonds, moderate to nil. Debt-oriented mutual funds, you have high liquidity, and equity-oriented mutual funds, you have high liquidity. When we speak about the company debentures as low and bonds as moderate, is the reason we say moderate is that these bonds will be listed on the stock exchange. It could be NSE, National Stock Exchange, or BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange. There you will always have a provision to sell it and convert it back to cash. So next part, we talk about safety. Okay. So the safety part is talking about company debentures has equity shares has got very low. Okay. Base safety, because you know the stock markets are extremely volatile. So a stock what you buy today, tomorrow it can go up or it can come down. So you need to make a thorough analysis and then decide which stock or which shares you are going to buy. Then your company debentures is moderate, bonds high, RBI tax-free bonds high, since we are talking about safety, debt-oriented mutual funds moderate, and equity-oriented mutual funds is low because the risk is high. Why risk is high in equity mutual funds? Because whatever is the amount that is being collected from you in return is getting invested back into the equities. Then you have active involvement required. Equity shares, yes. You have to monitor the company. You have to keep track of it, then decide when to buy, when to sell, everything as such. So your active involvement is required high. Company debentures, no, because you have no role to play over there. Let it be bonds, RBI bonds, mutual funds, or anything as such, your involvement is not required over there. Then we talk about your tax savings. So tax saving provisions in your equity shares, it is high. Now, in fact, from last 3 years, it has been reduced. Earlier, what used to happen was any returns on equity, long-term capital gains on equity was completely tax-free. Now they have made it taxable at a specified rate. Company debentures refer to tax chapter. Okay, so because it keeps on changing. So at some point of time, it becomes taxable, non-taxable, and interest by default is taxable. Taxable at the applicable rate to you. If it's RBI tax-free bonds, there was no tax, but when we're talking about RBI floating rate bonds, though the interest that you earn over there is again taxable. Debt-oriented mutual funds, again moderate, and equity-oriented mutual fund tax saving is good enough. Amount required, if at all you want to make an investment or get into direct equity markets, it is medium. Company debentures, again medium. And if you talk about various bonds or anything as such, the amount required is low. So I'll not get too much detailed into this. This is just for some understanding. So we always say that any investor at any point of his lifespan, okay, he might be retired or he might have just started, he has a specific type of mutual fund which could match his requirements. Okay, so if you want extremely risky mutual funds, yes, there are. Okay, you want extremely safe mutual funds, yes, there are. Okay, so there are various types of mutual funds which can be matched based on the investor's requirement and then recommended for him. Okay, so this is talking about the risk and return of different types of mutual fund schemes. Okay, so the most safest is your liquid funds, okay, which is pure debt-oriented fund with a maturity period of anywhere between 6 days to 14 days only. So it's extremely safe, whereas your returns, as we say, risk and return go hand in hand. The potential return, what you can look out for, could be somewhere around 3.5% to 4%. So you on the other side, you have extremely risky, that is called as a small cap fund. Small cap would mean capitalization, that is market capitalization. Market capitalization is nothing but quantity of shares issued into the current market price. So these stocks, small cap stocks, would have potential of giving you returns of 80% or 100% return, positive returns per annum, or negative return of 60-70% per annum also. So that being the reason, so those type of funds are recommended for aggressive investors who know the risk associated with that and who are ready to take that kind of a risk. So usually the most preferred type of mutual funds would be a multi-cap. Okay, so multi-cap would have large cap, mid cap, small cap, all this kind of stocks over there. Or if you want much more safer, you can go for a large cap mutual funds. Again, before deciding on what type of funds you have to go into, we will have to analyze your risk return factors and then recommend an investment for you. But trust me, for any kind of financial planning, you can always look out for building a portfolio of mutual funds for yourself. Okay. So the next part, what we are talking about over here is setting smart financial goals. So basically a goal would mean where you are today and where you want to reach at a future point of time. So this smart financial goals would mean you need to be specific. So the S in the smart says specific, M says measurable, A says achievable, R says realistic, and T says time bound. So when you say specific, you need to know exactly what you want to achieve and when you want it. Okay. So when you say, if at all somebody comes and says, I want to be rich by next 5 years. So what is that rich by 5 years? Means how are you defining that richness? Where, okay, time you have defined it as 5 years. but what is it? Okay, so you need to have that much, your balance sheet size has to be that, or your bank account balance has to be this, or anything else. So you need to be specific. When you talk about measurable, a goal should be measurable so that you know when you will achieve it. So as we defined it as 5 years, I want to be rich in future. So what is that future? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, by the time you retire, or when is it? Then comes achievable. Your goal should be within the reasonable reach. It's something like you cannot come and say that I have 10,000 rupees with me. I'm going to make an investment today, and in next 1 year, I'll make that as 10 lakh rupees. Okay. Only in extreme cases that might be possible. But if you talk about probability, the law of probability states it is very remote. Okay. Then it has to be realistic. Okay. So the goal what you are setting has to be realistic. Okay. Your goals need to be based on resources and tasks that you can reasonably accomplish. Then comes time bounds. Goals with timelines allow you to track your progress. You say in next 10 years, I should have achieved this much. Okay. So every year you can keep a track and say, what is the progress? Is there a positive incremental progress? Okay. So this is how you can set smart financial goals. Basically, this rule of SMART can be applied to any kind of goals. We have only tried to bring it into the financial goals over here. Okay. Most important thing is that how do we achieve financial independence? Okay, so I'm sure everyone wants to be independent, and achieving financial independence is the supreme most thing for any individual. So if you talk about financial independence, the very first thing it starts with is your savings and investments. Then comes managing debt wisely. The problem with the current scenario is that money is available very easily by way of your credit cards, by way of loans, personal loans, gold loans, or anything as such. So we get into a trap, basically a debt trap. Since money is available, we try to spend it. Okay, contrary, you try to make an investment out of it, might be good. But still, we never advise anybody to make an investment using debt or borrowed money. Okay, then comes your planning for retirement. Safeguard from fraudulent schemes. This is where there are a lot of Ponzi schemes which comes out and says that, okay, you give us 1,000 rupees today, take back 2,000 rupees tomorrow. Okay, so this has been in reality. Okay, and people have lost money. Okay, it is no way possible that somebody could double your money. Okay, forget about doubling. If somebody comes back and says that I'll assure you 10% returns per month, okay, he might give you returns for 2 months or 3 months. Later on, you might lose out your capital also. So don't get into those kind of schemes. Then comes financial planning and budgeting. Okay, so you need to plan your finances and budget them. Okay. Okay. So when we spoke about the financial planning as a whole process, so how does this process work? The very first thing is you need to determine your current financial position. Okay, where are you as of now? Okay, so would mean to say that what is your current financial position and where do you want to be in a span of next 1 year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. Then comes identify and set your financial goals. You need to identify and set. So you will have various financial goals across your life cycle. So you need to specifically mention this time, this is the goal you need to achieve. And to achieve that particular goal, this is the kind of resources that is required for you. Okay. Then comes identify suitable investment avenues which can help you achieve that financial goals. Now, let's say you do not make any of these kind of investments. If you say, no, I'm only earning and saving. Out of that, I will achieve my financial goals. You still can achieve, no doubt about it. But the amount required to set aside for achieving that financial goal will be phenomenally high. Okay. So that being the reason, converting your savings into investment is the ideal way for achieving your financial goals. So identify suitable investment avenues. Evaluate alternatives and strategies. So once you have identified, evaluate them and then see which one matches your requirements or your risk return profile. Then create and implement your financial action plan. So once you create and implement your financial action plan, that doesn't mean that it's the end of it. You continue, you might have to periodically review. Periodically review might be once in 6 months, once in a year, to see whether what you expected out of that investment, is it meeting that, is it achieving that? And then if it is not, you might have to think about changing it from that investment to another investment. And this is a cycle which continues throughout. So when you talk about investing, what care should one take while investing? So the very first thing is, if somebody is proposing you a scheme or an investment plan, please obtain written documents explaining the investment. Okay, read and understand such document and ask for clarifications on things which you do not understand. Verify the legitimacy of such investment. That means to say, check whether it is genuinely available or possible. Like, for example, a lot of my investors come back to me and say that there are certain insurance plans which are assuring them 15%, 20% returns per annum. Trust me, no such insurance plans are there which can give you such kind of assurance. There is only a few insurance plans which has assured returns, and those assured returns is something like 3 to 4% per annum. Okay. So you need to verify the legitimacy of such investments. Most of the time, people come and try to convince you by giving you false projections. So don't get trapped into that. Check the cost and benefits associated with that particular investment. Assess the risk return profile of the investment and then try to see whether it matches your own risk return profile. Understand the liquidity and safety aspect of the investment. Now, that's where we spoke about liquidity, and we said that your financial goal for which you are making an investment is 5 years, but you decided to make an investment into a product which has a maturity of 10 years or 15 years. So there you'll have a mismatch. So you need to understand the liquidity and safety aspects of the investment and then match them. Ascertain if it is appropriate for your specific goal. Compare the features with other investment options available. If there is some particular investment plan or something which is extraordinarily unique, then there is something wrong with that, because most of it will be at par. Okay, a small tweaking or change in the benefits could be there, but not to a major extent. Like, for example, we talk about fixed deposits. We know that as of now, you talk about any of the banks, the interest that they are giving you is 5% or 5.5%. If you go to private sector bank, it could be 6%. If there is some bank or financial institution which is assuring you 10% or 12%, please be cautious. Examine if it fits with other investment you are considering or already made. That is, you're trying to compare it with what you have and what are the other alternatives that you have. Deal only through registered intermediaries. So this is the advantage of dealing through an intermediary, because these intermediaries will usually be professionals who would have sufficient knowledge and who would have evaluated these particular products. They would be in a better position to help you or explain you with respect to the risk and returns associated with that. Seek for all the information about the intermediary and the investment. Okay, explore the options available to you if something goes wrong, and then if satisfied, make the investment. So what are the alternatives? Okay, if something goes wrong, what are the alternatives available to you? So after looking at that, if you are satisfied, then you should go ahead and make a investment. We spoke about two types of investment, where we spoke about equity and we also spoke about debt. Debt is a very tricky thing for you to understand, means for a layman to understand and make an investment. So that being the reason, RBI and SEBI has mandated that any company which is issuing a debt, it mandatorily has to get it rated. Okay, a credit rating has to be sought for the same. So there are a lot of professional entities or credit rating agencies like CRISIL, CARE, ICRA, Moody's. So these are professional entities which give certain credit rating. So a product which is rated as AAA, that means to say it has got highest safety. So obviously, highest safety would mean lower returns. So a product with BBB says there is moderate safety. That would mean better returns. Speculative grade B, C, D, that means to say the risk associated is extremely high. Obviously, they would be giving you returns higher than the above two classes. So you can look out for these ratings when you're making an investment and keep tracking if the rating is reassigned, okay, to a company or to your product. Let's presume you bought a debenture which was AAA rated. After 1 year, it gets downgraded to AA or AA plus. That means to say the risk associated with that product has gone high in the last 1 year. Okay, so obviously for a higher risk, you are getting a lower return. So you need to keep track of that. Okay. So what are the lessons learned in the recent pandemic? The most important thing. Okay, so what we have learned over here is that there are a lot of people who lost their jobs, who were trusting or believing in only one source of income. Okay, so here it has become a mandate that it has said that you need to have multiple sources of income, and that is where we said you should always make your investments your secondary source of income. It might not be only investments. You will also have a plan B. Okay, what is the other way that you can generate income? So you need to have a secondary source of income. Then the most important thing, what everybody has realized, is the importance of having a good mediclaim policy. Okay, basically a mediclaim policy tries to tries to help you with financially for your hospital bills. Okay. The other point what I would like to highlight about this mediclaim policies is that most of you, once you join a company, you might be rest assured that your company has a mediclaim policy. So any medical exigencies you can claim from that particular policy. It is good that a company might be giving you that provision, but trust me, it is always better for you to have a personal mediclaim policy also, by making your own investments into that. The reason being, now let's say you are working for a company which is providing you this mediclaim policy. Okay, after a few years, you decide to move to another company where they do not give you this provision of mediclaim policies or anything as such. Then if you go to purchase a mediclaim policy, the premiums are directly related to your age. So you might have to pay a higher amount. And again, when you do that, there might be 1 year or 2 years where existing ailments might not be eligible for claims. So that being the reason, it is always better for you to have your own mediclaim policy also. Then comes the importance of having a good life insurance policy. Okay, so this is one of the most important product for risk management for any individual, especially for people who have dependents. Okay, so please look out for having a good life insurance policy. In life insurance policies, there are various types of insurance policies, but the one and only policy what I recommend to you is a term insurance plan. Term insurance plan is much similar to your vehicle insurance. Okay, so I'm sure all of you know that if your vehicle meets with an accident, you claim and the amount is repaid to you, or some amount is paid back to you. If there is no claim, you get back nothing. A term plan is also similar to that. In that case, why am I recommending a term plan is that for a small amount, let's say 12,000 or 15,000 rupees as insurance premium for 1 year, you can take a term plan with a value of 1 crore rupees. Okay, so if you say that no, I would take a 1 crore term plan, 1 crore insurance plan with a regular policy, the investment required per year might be running into few lakhs, might be 3 lakhs or 4 lakh rupees. Okay, it might be difficult for you to save that kind of an amount into an insurance policy. So that being the reason, please ensure that you have a very good and strong term plan which covers your risk management. Okay, most of my investors say that they are paying 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 rupees insurance premiums every month. Okay, so but when we sit and look out for what is the sum assured for these policies, it might be running into some 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs or 25 lakhs. So just imagine something happens to this particular person. Okay, so how will the family run the show with the amount received that is just 20 lakhs or 25 lakhs? Okay, so it becomes a big challenge. So it is most important for you to evaluate and have a right value term life insurance policy. That is the first thing you will have to do. Anything, let's say you do not decide to make an investment as of now. Okay, so the moment you get your job, ensure you have a good term plan, ensure you have a good mediclaim policy. Then you can look out for all other kinds of investments. Then comes the importance of having an emergency fund. This is one of the primary principle what we suggest all our clients to have emergency funds at any point of time. Now, what is this emergency fund? This is a fund which is highly liquid. Okay, let's say it could be your SB account also. Okay, you always need to have 3 to 6 months of your salary or your expenses in that fund, which you will not touch it for any reason until and up to exigencies. So that is called as an emergency fund. So it is, you need to have a 3 months income or your expenditure, or 6 months or your expenditure. 3 is the minimum and 6 is the maximum. During this pandemic, a lot of them realized this importance of having this emergency fund. All of a sudden, let's say the companies did not pay them salaries or anything as such, so they did not have any money to manage. So this emergency fund comes handy at that point of time. Let's say you have made investments everywhere. So in this pandemic, we saw that most of the markets fell. Okay, your equities fell, your mutual funds fell, your debts fell, or anything else. So that might not be a right time for you to withdraw that also. So that is the reason the moment you have this emergency fund set aside for you, you can always utilize it in time of contingency and replenish it, or bring it back to that 3 months or 6 months level once you start earning your money. The last and the most important lesson learned is the money management. Okay. So money management is a very holistic view what we look out for. Okay. Now, most of them are looking out for loan amortization, or they're looking out for moratorium period for their loans. It could be a housing loan, a vehicle loan. I've seen a lot of people on their mobile loans. They have bought mobile phones. Now they are not getting salaries to pay their EMIs for their mobiles. Okay. So money management includes your investment as well as proper debt management. Okay. So fortunately, India is a savings economy. We have not yet moved into investment economy. At least we are not a spending economy like US. Okay. US, if you see, a normal citizen over there has already spent his next 4 or 5 years of salaries or earnings by way of loans. So we don't do that. So we should always try to minimize opting for loans until and up to it becomes inevitable. So all these are the 5 important lessons what this pandemic has taught everybody. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share from my side. So now we can be open for Q&A. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm Dilekha from JSSSTU,
Yes,
5th Set Mechanical.
Yes,
So I had a question that what is the best way for investing for beginners actually? Once we graduate and get a job, what is the best way that we can invest?
Madam, best way of investing till you get sufficient knowledge is by way of mutual funds, madam. Mutual funds, that is where I said that you have debt funds, you have equity funds, or anything as such. Okay, you have the most safest to the most riskiest. Okay, so that will be a best way to start off initially. Then you can, as you start saving, you can then look out for alternate investment options. The other advantage in case of mutual funds is that you can start saving right from 100 rupees per month. So that's a big thing. So you can save right from 100 rupees per month also.
Thank you, sir. And I had another question also. You had shown a picture of this graph behind, I mean, in front of 100 rupee note, and rupee value is declining constantly.
Yes.
So
Madam.
why does that happen, sir? Like always rupee value gets decreasing.
It's the demand for your goods and services keeps on increasing, madam. So I'm sure you know that the demand and supply do not increase parallelly. So that being the reason, as demand increases, price also increases. Okay, so I'm sure you would have also realized, okay, so my school fees per month was 5 rupees. My kids' school fees per month is around 12,000 rupees. So there's a lot of difference. It could be on anything. So the cost has been continuously increasing. Okay, we do have a terminology just opposite to inflation called deflation. Okay, but the thing is, very rarely do we come across that scenario. The normal scenario is that your cost keeps on increasing every day.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other question?
Correct. I am Prabhu Swami here.
Sir, tell me, sir.
Yeah, very good information, especially for youngsters. Even for us, it is good information.
Yes,
and,
sir. Thank you.
You have taken all the way from a savings account to very higher order of investment. It's
Yes,
very
sir.
interesting. And I have one question.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Some of the companies like HDFC banks and other people come and ask you invest 5 lakh every month or every year, 10 years, and then you get your returns after 10 years and all. So many schemes are there. How far it is good?
Sir, basically all those plans, what they market to you is insurance plans. So what happens over there is the projections, whenever they give a proposal, okay, it is just a proposal what they give. So they assume certain percentage of returns on that, which might not be true. So normally an insurance company, what happens is that that is one of the reason why we say separate your insurance and separate your investment. When we talk about an insurance plan, any kind of insurance plan you talk about, there are very high charges levied, like your mortality charges, policy administration charges, everything gets removed from the premiums you pay. So the amount left out to come back to par itself might require few years.
They say some riders after 45 years, after 55 years, you have to pay extra. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But what they project may not be true.
No, sir. No. That is the reason whatever projections they give it to you as a printouts. It is not a printed material.
I see.
So, so anyway, they can give any percentage. They can assume any percentage and give a projection over there.
Anyway, congratulations. Good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. This is Abhishek here.
Morning, Abhishek.
Sir, I have a problem in valuing the company while buying it. Sometimes I buy, whatever I'm buying is at the blue chip stocks. So the valuation, sometimes I buy it and the market goes down almost by 3%, 4%. I feel really bad. I thought of like, okay, I could have bought it at 3-4% down. I'm a long-term investor, so I don't think it will be an issue. But still, somewhere down the line, 3-2% could have been extra, easily gained.
Sir, when we talk about equity markets, it is never possible for anybody to do a bottom fishing. So if we feel that the current price of the stock is fair enough, we have to make an investment. So let it be whoever it is. It could be Warren Buffett, it could be me, it could be you or anybody as such. So we are only trying to evaluate, okay, whether the current market price is good enough. So that being the reason, that's a normal tendency that you buy a stock and it comes down, you sell a stock and it goes up. So that's a normal scenario in case of equity markets, which happens to me even after 20 years. So it's quite normal. The only thing you need to be confident about is your evaluation process. So how are you saying, or how are you evaluating and stating that the price or the price of this particular company stock is good enough? If you are confident about that process, you need not worry about it. Do I answer you?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else has any other questions? If you have, you can unmute your microphone and interact with the speaker. Sir, I guess we have come to the end of the session. There are no more questions. Thank you very much, sir. I take this opportunity to thank you for giving us a very informative and wonderful session. And I would also like to thank our HOD, convener, the organizing team, support staff, and all the participants for being with us on this session and making this 3-day webinar successful. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you all. And the feedback form for today will be sent to your registered mail ID and the Telegram group shortly. Thank you all. Have a good day. Thank you, Sharad sir, once again.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.